but this is one to also look towards. Statewide longitudinal data systems, this is already out. The application deadline is November the 19th, and hopefully there is the connection that's being made, the conversation is taking place, not only with the data people who will be responsible for administering this, but those who are going to be the users of it, to make sure that the plans for it are coherent and integrated in a way that can be used. In this chart, it lays out two dimensions. It has who applies for the money, the primary applicant, and it runs vertically, and the other part is who spends the money, where the money actually ultimately will be spent. It runs horizontally. While the state is usually the applicant for most of the U.S. Department of Education funds, local education agencies are usually the ultimate recipients of the funding or impacted by the state's investment in the education reform. So there are circumstances when both the states and districts will be recipients. Ultimately, though, all these investments should be and must impact the classrooms and improve student outcomes. If you look at the placement of these boxes representing each of the new R programs, it sort of paints a picture. The bottom line, 95% of these program monies require coordination between state and local agencies. School districts and states that are efficient and strategic will have greater success in obtaining and implementing these grants. So even for those of you that do not require close collaboration, even for the grant funds that don't require close collaboration, it makes really good sense to work together so that you have a coherent plan that shows how you're going to impact the whole system, not just the state, not just the district, but also the schools. Another key area is the fact that you have the formula dollars that are already in place. And so what we're working on now are scenarios that will show you, that will demonstrate how for Title I and IDEA, funds from those various funding streams can be tied to those funds for implementation at the school and in instances at the district level. There's also an opportunity for some strategic planning goals. Now, everyone has a process for conducting strategic planning or for doing the planning process in your district. And so the department is not trying to tell you how to do that, but listed here are some strategies that have been suggested as part of the mechanism for working through strategic planning goals for use of the ARA dollars. The opportunities exist to create lasting reform, to break down silos at the state and local levels, to break down silos between IDEA and Title I and the other federal grant programs, to establish models of community engagement and transparency, and to improve the capacity for grant management in SEAs and LEAs. And so there are a number of core actions. You notice the first two involve convening people to talk about how these funds would be utilized. And of course, you do that. We encourage those that don't do it as much as they might consider to do so, but this is a good process to work through. And it's important to share information within and external to the school districts and to the state education agency. It's also important to have access to the uses of funds guidance, because that's going to tell you, it's going to tell you if there are any roadblocks to a strategy that you might want to use to implement for use of these funds. These areas are generally the people that are involved in the coordination efforts. It's key that you do all you can, working through whatever outreach programs that you may have available to try to connect with as many of these as possible. What we're trying to do on our end is to provide you with access to information as quickly as we have it, as quickly as we release the new guidance. We are hosting, Gail, where are you? Almost weekly webinars. On those webinars are people such as the education people from the governor's offices, members of the state boards of education, their district superintendents, their representatives from NASP and from the Elementary School Principals Organization, the Council of Great City Schools, the National Association of State Title I Directors, district superintendents, some state superintendents. So we're trying to get the word out and the message out to all of these audiences. Coming up is going to be a webinar that focuses more concretely on these discretionary grant programs and how these discretionary grant programs can be used to support reform. Hopefully before this year ends, we will be able to share our scenarios, the ones that IDEA at the Department of Education, that my staff from Title I, that my staff from Title III, that the ed technology people are working on to show how you can use these funds at the building level without conflicting with supplement, not supplant issues. So those are forthcoming, and we will make sure that we get that word out as quickly as we can. One of the reasons I want you to have this PowerPoint, there's several, because I think that there's some pieces in here that you can use when you sit down and when you get back that will be helpful to have in your hands to digest. But if you look at the timelines, the planning timelines for these programs, you'll see that in many instances there is overlap, but you need to know what is happening with the stabilization piece and with the longitudinal data systems to help figure out how to address the school improvement pieces, the race to the top pieces, and the others, because you're going to be asked about those grant programs and applications. And so the way that this is cascaded out is important for you to see and understand. And this is the slide I told you about. Now, you're not to be intimidated by this slide. What this does is it lays out, it follows the timelines that I just showed you on this screen, and it enables you to map out coordinating planning activities. It helps you to understand when you need to be meeting with superintendents, or their staffs need to be meeting with school principals and others in the school district to figure out how to apply, for example, for the I-cubed dollars, the innovation dollars. And so you'll have this in the PowerPoint that I'm going to leave here. The point here, though, is to provide very specific planning recommendations on how to work collaboratively and strategically over the next 3 months over the ARA funding. This covers a 3-month period. The process should, of course, continue as other ARA grants are being made available and as you receive your next iteration of formula grant dollars. Now, for those of you who follow the budgetary process at the federal level, you know that we're in the final throes of Congress working out budget details. The House has already approved their budget recommendations, and the Senate is still working on theirs. But there's some things based on that are contained in the budget that we know are going to be priorities. Early learning is a priority in that budget. And so any investment, any work, any collaboration around early learning will be a good thing. And it's not just the Head Start and the Early Head Start, it's for early learning initiatives that are supported through, those are over in Health and Human Services, the Department of Health and Human Services, but also those initiatives that are supported by the Department of Education. Title I preschool has been around for a long time, and districts have had the option of focusing dollars in that area. Many do not focus the dollars in that area, but there's some that have put a lot of dollars in early learning. This is an opportunity to think about your focus, knowing that there are going to be other dollars next year to continue that effort. We're concerned about dropping off the cliff when the ARA dollars expire in a couple of years. And so I would encourage you to pay special attention to the final congressional budget as part of the mechanism for thinking about how to target these resources so that you can have